All right, let's jump right into this. This is a crazy story about a solution that turned into an absolute catastrophe.
I mean, really, think about that question for a second. Can a fish give you a concussion? It sounds completely absurd, like a trick question, right? But believe it or not, in parts of the United States, this is a very real, very serious public safety issue.
And I'm not exaggerating. For anyone out on a boat in the Mississippi River system, this is no joke. People are getting facial fractures, broken noses, concussions, even having their boats capsized, all because of a fish.
So how on earth did we get to a point where fish are, and I mean literally attacking people? Let's take a look at the menace itself.
The main offender here is a species called the silver carp, and these things have this incredible, almost unbelievable defense mechanism. When they're startled by something like a boat motor, they can leap 10 feet straight out of the water. It's this one behavior that turned an environmental problem into a genuine physical danger for people.
But here's where the story gets really wild. This whole mess, it actually started out with the best of intentions. It was supposed to be a good thing.
You have to go all the way back to the 1970s. Back then, these fish weren't seen as villains. They were heroes. They were brought into states like Arkansas and Louisiana to be this amazing bio-solution, an all-natural, eco-friendly way to clean wastewater and fish ponds without using harsh chemicals.
So you had this perfect promise, right? Clean water, no chemicals, a totally natural solution. What could possibly go wrong? Well, as it turns out, everything. The entire plan hinged on one critical assumption, that these fish would stay put. But then floods came, regulations were loose, and they escaped.
And that was it. The moment they got out, this small, localized solution started to morph into a full-blown continental nightmare.
And where did they escape to? Oh, just the absolute perfect environment for them to thrive. The Mississippi River system was like a superhighway built just for them. It's massive, warm, loaded with nutrients from farm runoff, and has very few natural barriers to stop them. They just spread like wildfire.
The result is, well, it's just staggering. By the 2000s, in some parts of the Mississippi River, if you could somehow weigh all the fish in the water, Asian carp would account for up to 90% of that total weight. 90%! They didn't just move in, they completely took over.
Now, you might be thinking, they're just aggressive predators, eating all the other fish. But that's not how they work. Their method is much more subtle, and frankly, way more destructive.
Think of these carp as giant swimming vacuum cleaners. They are industrial-scale filter feeders, just swimming around with their mouths open, sucking up enormous amounts of plankton. And plankton is the absolute bottom of the food chain. It's what all the native baby fish and their food sources eat. By wiping out the plankton, they're basically pulling the rug out from under the entire native ecosystem.
The native fish populations, they just couldn't compete. The carp are the perfect invasive species. They grow huge, incredibly fast, they reproduce like crazy, and there are no natural predators in North America big enough to eat them. Soon, entire generations of native fish just vanished because their young had nothing to eat.
So what have we done about this? You'd think after all this time we'd have it under control, right? Well, for about 50 years, we've basically been one step behind, constantly playing catch-up and pretty much losing the entire time.
The response has been a classic case of too little, too late. First, for decades, it was just denial, people saying it was a local problem and not a big deal. Then, panic set in when they started getting close to the Great Lakes, so we built this giant electric barrier near Chicago. We've even tried marketing campaigns like Eat the Enemy to convince people to eat them. But so far, nothing has really stopped their advance.
All of this really forces you to step back and ask a bigger question. Are we even blaming the right thing here? Is the fish the real villain in the story? Or is it something else?
Because this is what's so fascinating. If you look at these exact same fish in their native China, the story is completely different. They aren't an ecological menace. They are a valuable, managed resource. For 2,000 years, they've been a crucial part of aquaculture and a major food source. They're in balance. They're part of the system, not a threat to it.
And that's really the light bulb moment, isn't it? The problem was never a monstrous fish. The problem was a monstrously flawed idea.
This was a fundamental failure of thinking. This belief that we can just, pick up a piece from one ecosystem over here, drop it into a completely different one over there, and expect everything to just work out fine. This entire crisis is really a story about that dangerous illusion finally shattering.
And that really leaves us with a critical question we have to ask ourselves. As we search for new, innovative, well-intentioned solutions to today's environmental challenges,
What are the huge, catastrophic consequences that we're just not seeing this time?